Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the where clause and what that means. And basically what the where clause is kind of like a filter, kind of like in the previous video how we talked about distinct where we wanted to eliminate data. The where clause is another way to kind of filter out data. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at let's just go ahead and build a select statement. Let's take a look at our database log table. All right, so a little trick here on how to get data. So let's say that I wanted to get all the columns. There's a couple ways to do that. I can just drag the columns by selecting columns, drag that over here like this. And I like to format my data so it looks pretty neat, or my queries. I mean, I like to format them so they look pretty neat and in order. But you can do it however you want. I don't want the SQL of it. Let's just get rid of that because that's kind of confusing. Now, as you can see, we have like some errors. So we need to add our from clause because it doesn't know right now which database I'm trying to pull this from. So I can come up here and I can say pull it from here. It says, okay, that didn't work. You know, it knows the database. It actually really needs, there we go. And let's just go ahead and give it the fully qualified. So now we know it's only going to pull from this database on this particular table, just in case in any of these other databases that we have, there might have been a table with this name, possibly. Doubt it, but hey, you never know. So, and we're also getting an error on schema. So one of the things that we can do, because these have keyword names, we know that we want to pull from the tables. We know we have tables with those names. But because these are also keyword names, it's going to give us that error. So one of the things we can do to get rid of these errors is we can put them in brackets. So let's just go ahead and do that. And again, this is a little tedious, but I promise you in the long run, it's actually the best practice. And this eliminates a lot of problems and confusion as you're writing your code. So now what's going to happen is that this is in blue right now. So now we're going to change that. And now it's going to change that color. Because now it's no longer looking for an operator or a function. Instead, it's looking for a specific column. Because that's what the bracket tells. It says, hey, this is a column, not a function or an operator or keyword or whatever. This is specifically for a column. And as you notice down here in our from statement, when we pull these things over and we drag and drop, it also does the same thing. Now, there is a much faster way to do this as well. So let's just delete this. Another thing you can do, speaking of keywords and operators and whatnot, is you can use star. Star means select everything. So if we just hover over it, it tells us to select everything. Now this is a nice quick shortcut way to do things if you're testing, but I don't ever recommend using a star in live, production query or like a live store procedure, which we'll go over those later on. But you never really want to do that in anything that you're doing in production, only for testing. And the reason for that is because you want to be very specific about what columns you're pulling. You don't want to pull more than what you need. And the reason for that is you just want to be as optimized as possible. And star, honestly, is just not optimized. Some people could argue and say, well, if I add on and I want to get everything, in the future, I don't have to go back in the database and, I don't have to add. That's true. But you can also break existing stuff too. If you use star in all your statements. So there's pros and cons to it. So my best practice is just simply don't use it, unless it's just for testing or for learning purposes. Um, just don't do it. Just say no. All right, so let's go ahead and just select, and we get everything back as we expected because we learned about select statements before, so we kind of know how they work. So we know currently that we have 100 records because we can see our counter over here. So I want to do something though to where I only get specific types of records. So how do I do that? Let's start with something really simple. Let's say that I want to get only where the objects have this dim account. How do I do that? So we're going to use the where clause. So we know our column is object. Now we're going to say object equals, and then this means string. So basically it means anything. A string is anything. It can be any character essentially. Now this is an opening and closing. So anything in between here except for that character, because it's a key character, you can put anything in here. You can do that. Now we're specifically looking for this dim account. Now as we notice, it's also a keyword. So we got rid of that earlier by using our brackets. So let's just go ahead and use our brackets. Just because we want it to be as clean as possible. We'll go ahead and leave the star in there though, just because this is for testing purposes. It doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and see how many records we pull back that have an object of dim account. My guess is probably only one, but let's just take a look. Oh, there are 3 records in our database that have that use this object dim account. Now, let's say that we wanted to widen our search a little bit. Let's just say we want to say dim. Let's see what we get back with dim. Oh, nothing. Now, why is dim account there, but dim isn't? As we see these records, well, here's the thing. We're literally searching for dim. Okay, so if we did that, we're literally saying that this object must equal only dim. This way, we're saying we wanted to say, oh, is it dim account? So let's just highlight this portion, or actually, let's delete our where clause. Let's go back and let's see what other records we have, just so we can practice. Let's see what else is in here. Let's try creating something for currency. I think I've seen currency a couple times. So let's just grab that. We're just gonna copy paste it. So again, using the where clause, we're gonna say where, and we're gonna put it in brackets this time because we know we're gonna be using a keyword. So we're gonna say where that column is equal to dim currency. And then I'm just going to press F5, or you can click execute, doesn't matter. As you can see, as I hover over it, it has the hotkey of F5. And there we go. We have 3 records that have dim currency as well. Now, if we look at these records, we can see some differences in these records. They have a different log ID. They have a different post time. They do have the same database user. Okay, that's fine. But they have different events. So one of these was creating a table, and the other one was altering a table. And then obviously they're going to have 3 separate T-SQL scripts that they're executing, and probably the XML, if I had to guess, is probably different too. But the schema is the same. Obviously, the object's the same because that's what we're saying here in our where clause. We only want those that are in this database, and we're selecting everything. So just to kind of recap on that, on the select, we could also just do columns. And now you don't have to put this in a row, but you can. We can still just execute like that. Oh, it's going to give us an error. It's saying that the keyword schema is a keyword. So if we get that error, we can just fix it like that. We can do that for that as well. Fix that. Oh, that's a keyword. Fix that. T-SQL is a keyword. Fix that. No more errors. We can execute. There we go. So if you're getting these errors, remember you can fix them if you know it's a column by using the brackets, or you can just do select star. Another option is, if you really wanted to, you can drag these over individually. Now, if you're dragging these over individually like this, you're going to get a problem because you need to have a comma. You're going to need to tell it that after every record that you're wanting to select, go to the next one. Go to the next one. Now, you don't have to have it like this. You can also write it like this. Now we're getting an error for some particular reason. Oh, because I took that out. That was totally my fault. So now we'll execute again. So there's lots of ways to write these queries or in the instructions. But in this particular tutorial though, our main focus though was the where clause. Just make sure that you know how to use it. We can do a lot of things within our where clause for filtering. We can also filter on multiple things. So let's just execute this code only. So what we'll do here, we'll just delete that so I don't want to confuse you. I'm going to go back to our select star so we can get everything. And now let's filter with two filters. So we have an event. So let's just filter on an event. And our IntelliSense is coming up, so we can just use that. Now again, keyword, so wrap it in a bracket. And in our where clause, we need to use the keyword and. So up here we used, if we had event, for example, and we wanted something else, we'd use the comma. In the where clause, the keyword that we need to use is and. And I'm going to go to the next line. And then I want to filter on that object. The same as we had done prior. And then I want to specify dim account. But let's just see if we get anything back with these two filters. And this time we only got one record. So let's see what happens if we delete this and. Let's see if we get multiple records from create a table. Oh, we do. So I'm going to undo that delete. And there's only one record, if I execute this, that has event create table and where the object is dim account. So that's a good way to filter out data for things that you may only want one specific thing or a few specific things.